Sorry about the technical issues that I was having there. I believe Kyle has stepped away to get some books to show off, and then we'll get going. How is everybody this evening? I hope you are good. Facebook seems to be playing up a little bit. Go over here. That started. I don't know why Facebook's not seeing it. I apologize to the Facebook users. It is a Facebook problem, not a me problem. It says it's live, but it's not showing video. We're having trouble playing this video. So if you're watching this on Facebook and you can actually see us, bully. If you can't, I'm sorry. But anyhow, I just want to make a brief announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter how attractive you may find her, just please remember, Lady Dimitrescu weighs 950 pounds. She'll die, or you'll die if she sits on you. So just, if you're playing the new Resident Evil game, just be aware. Even if she didn't mean to, she would definitely mean to. So we're waiting for Kyle to come back. He's off getting some books. He is in the secondary man cave right now, but I think he has to go off and retrieve something from the gym where he often live streams from. So I'm going to move over here and see if there are in fact anyone, if there is in fact anyone participating. A couple of viewers. So welcome to it. Welcome to Crazy Gibberish Wastrel Wednesdays with myself and my currently invisible co-host Kyle. Kyle, of course, is a secret agent for the Australian government who has been programmed to react to certain trigger words like dungeons and dragons, and he then goes active and spreads chaos on the internet. Oh, there you are, Kyle. We weren't... hi, hello.
Like Superman, undo my jacket and...
There you go. How are you doing, man?
Good.
Wonderful. I am doing fine and dandy myself. I'm a little tired. I did a lot of yard work today. So, and I have a lot more to do tomorrow. Although Friday may be the better day. It's a little warm down here in sunny Florida. Down here relative to everybody else in the U.S. Up here, way up here relative to Kyle. Whereas you guys are in the icy grip of winter where you're at, I'm guessing, yes?
We are. It's not much of a winter by European or American standards. We only get snow up in the hills and stuff. But, but by Aussie standards, it gets below 10 degrees. What's that in old money?
Like 40s?
I don't know about...
I don't know.
Nah, 50s or even 60s, in Fahrenheit.
It gets 30 hectares to a liter of kerosene, something like that.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's like I remember some time ago on a strength forum, there was a guy describing how in his home gym, in his garage gym, he put his barbell next to the heater for half an hour before he went to work out. And everyone was calling him a wuss. And then he explained that he was in Minnesota or something, and it got to way below freezing. He said, "I just don't like it when my hand sticks to the bar."
There was back in 2017 or 2018 in the winter, in I believe it's Maine. If it's not Maine, if some of our American viewers want to correct me, that's fine. There's a National Weather Service station on top of Mount Washington, and with the wind chill, it got down to, I think, minus 160. They were having a winter storm, minus 160 or something, absolutely insane like that. I'm like, oxygen starts to become a solid right around that point. I think it's just like you can't breathe. You have to eat it to try and survive. But anyway,
Nothing like that here.
yeah, yeah. And
Nothing like that
fortunately,
here.
nothing like that here in Florida either. I mean, we're people who, when it hits 40 degrees, will deck out in heavy jackets and toques, stocking caps and scarves and maybe even gloves, depending if there's a little frost on the cars. But absolutely from the waist down, it's cargo shorts and flip-flops. Because we know by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to be up in the 70s again. So, but anyway, just a passerby on YouTube says Red Box. I'm guessing that's in reference to Kyle's T-shirt.
It is.
Now,
unfortunately, I can't get advanced Dungeons and Dragons T-shirts.
You know what, man? I'm just gonna break down one day and get some swag made up. I have one or two. What? No, I have one AD&D shirt, and like nostalgia sells. It does. I mean, nostalgia does. Well, it
does. I think there's a reason that the 5th Ed starter set uses this as their cover.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit worried, like, when some game clubs start up again. So for those who don't know, here in Australia, lots of the game clubs died off during all our lockdowns and stuff, at least in my state. So when some open up again, I'm afraid that there might be some confusion. If I walk into a game club, people might mistake me for a 5th Ed player. I'm a bit worried about this.
We can't have that.
Why?
But yeah, there used to be a website done by Wizards. It was dndmerch.com, and you could get all kinds of vintage artwork on clothes. I have a Dungeon Master's Guide shirt. You've all seen it on camera before. That I love. I mean, it's a wonderful shirt, and it's very comfortable and so on. They don't do it anymore. They subcontracted to some dude who pushes his own merch. He's his own brand and makes tiny little D&D doodads, like earrings and actual physical rings that have a D20 logo on them. But I'm like, I would buy a crap ton of AD&D merch if you guys had it. I have a basic D&D shirt also, but it's the magenta box. It's the Errol Otis illustration from that era of basic also. But that, I think, was not exactly authorized. I see those pop up every now and again on the internet, and it's like, this item is available for 24 hours. Because they know Wizards going to come after them hammer and tongs if they try and put it on an actual store. So when I see this pop up from time to time, I will grab them and try and get one. But yeah, there needs to be more classic D&D merch. I mean, when I set up my business, Guide Key, which is an online, and once travel restrictions are completely eased and so on, in-person D&D event company, and I spoke with my first client, Amazon. I explained to the facilitator there, I said, yeah, we're going to be playing the Dungeons and Dragons of Stranger Things. We're going to be playing the Dungeons and Dragons of the Goldbergs, of Freaks and Geeks, of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And he was elated because he said it, and he would be in a position to know. He's an executive at Amazon. He said, vintage sells. Vintage is huge. So, that I can't get this on a t-shirt right now is ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous. You know. So yeah, hopefully I can get some. And just a passerby says, take one of your AD&D books, go to the print shop, and make up your own shirt. Yeah, that actually is my plan. In fact, I have some old catalogs. I've featured them on the live stream before. Catalogs of classic D&D products from box sets that TSR put out back in the day. They did gangbusters in T-shirts. I mean, not Gangbusters the RPG. I'm sure you can get a Gangbusters shirt, but they sold a lot of T-shirts with D&D product logos on them. If I can get those blown up to, an acceptable looking resolution, hell, I'll get myself an original, brand new, vintage D&D T-shirt like TSR would have sold back in the day. That would be kind of cool. And perhaps one for my co-host also. But anyway, I'm just going to jump in with both feet. I'm not going to swish my feet around the shallow and go, ooh, that's kind of chilly, and ease in. I'm going to walk all the way around and get on the diving board and jump in. Role-playing game creators, and I'm including you in on this, Kyle, and myself, because I haven't made rules, but I've made lots of adventures. Some of them have been published. Role-playing gamer creators are kind of a special breed. We have to combine exciting, gripping stuff with the dryness and accuracy of stereo instructions. And it requires a special kind of double-think to want to write the great American or Australian fantasy or adventure novel or science fiction or spy or western or what have you, and still make something that is open, that other people can participate in. So yeah, we tend to co-process a lot. We tend to multitask. We tend to run a lot of things. There is a breed of role-playing game creator that, let me just not bury the lead anymore, are just fucking nuts. And you, Kyle, you had the opportunity to not only interact with, but meet face-to-face one of the craziest of them. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So
C.S. Mccracken.
Tonight, Kyle will be telling us all about his interactions with C.S. Mccracken. Now, I'm gonna put myself in this story in just a tiny way. Kyle and I were discussing the fact that just before we met him, Kyle was going to be at a weight training conference in Seattle in the United States, as opposed to Seattle, Barbados. I know. Anyway, and he said, "Gosh, C.S. Mccracken lives there. I wonder if I should meet him." I sent C.S. Mccracken an email and said, "A colleague of mine who's a role-playing gamer would like to meet you." And he said, "Well, I presume this is how it went when he was thinking about this as typing in. Sure, man. Just give me his info." And that ends my story in this. Kyle, take us back to the year of our Lord. I think it was 2016 or so.
2012.
2012?
2012.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody saw my portrait of Dorian Gray. All right. God, so almost a decade ago now. Almost a decade ago. Set the scene and tell us about meeting and interacting with Raven Mccracken, and then we're going to get the knife and the fork out and start gently chewing our way through Synnibarr.
Raven Mccracken, author of World of Synnibarr. Bill kind of has the right of it that every text, whether it be a role-playing game or a telephone book or whatever, has a balance of being entertaining and informational, or entertaining and educational, if you like. It's giving some information and it's giving some entertainment. So as Bill said, I think that's pretty insightful that as game writers or even as game masters and so on, you have to be both as well. You know, you have to convey the information and you have to say this is how you play the game, and you also have to have some enthusiasm and some ideas that grab people and interest them. And it's the same true for movies and all the rest as well. There's your quiet documentaries, and then there's a Michael Bay movie with all the explosions. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't matter, but it's entertaining. So the same's true of role-playing game. So as Bill said, every game designer, and I think every game master, because you're designing a game for your table, they have to have that sort of be able to convey information, but they have to have that sort of those crazy ideas as well. That, just to take these random things that they roll up on charts or ideas that they get from somewhere and put them together into something that's entertaining. So they need to have a bit of craziness, a bit of enthusiasm, and a bit of skill. But some people go a bit too far down that rabbit hole. So down the rabbit hole of the rules, you get pretty dry stuff like GURPS and Hero. And then down the rabbit hole of entertainment, you get World of Synnibarr. So I went to Seattle, and I'd said I'd meet Mccracken, and he said we'd meet up in this Starbucks. That's where we are. We're on Starbucks on I can't remember what it is now. It's a main square in front of the central train station in Seattle, and there was a Starbucks there. And anyway, I said, I'm 40-something years old and white and short dark hair and stuff, and he just replied, "I have a mohawk," and he did. So we met up. Can you still hear me, Bill? You got all quiet.
Yeah, no, I can still hear you. I'm
okay, sorry, yeah.
This one's all you, man.
Okay. Okay. All right. So he said, "Yeah, I have a mohawk," and indeed he did. And so I walked in and I saw that guy, and I presumed that was him. It looked to me like a gamer or a goat fiend or something like that, and both was correct. And we shook hands, and he said something to the effect of, "Do you know that the Earth is 4 gorillion tons?" I thought this was an interesting kind of greeting. I haven't been greeted that way before in my life, just straight up with the information. And he explained that, it was part of his, I don't know where he got the measure of gorillion from, but anyway, it was part of his research for World of Synnibarr 2 that he was working on at the time. And yeah, we sat down and we talked game design, and we play tested World of Synnibarr 2. He had, what was it? I had a fighter Gonzo, and he had a fighter Mort. We play tested a little fight. Each hit did, if you hit, it did 20 points of damage, and each of us had 200 hit points or something. Once I realized that, I sort of diverted him to start talking about game designers gossip and stuff, because I could see that was going to take some time of us battering away at each other, and it was going to get a wee bit tedious. And yeah, he proceeded to tell me some stories of how he produced the game, and his life. Anyway, so he said that now I'm not vouching for the truth or accuracy of anything that Raven told me. Okay, I just wanted to put that out there. I'm just reporting. This is hearsay. This is what he said.
Disclaimers apply.
Yeah. So he said that he had gamed with Go Gygax one day down in Florida. And when he came to character generations, he was extremely indignant that he couldn't be a wizard with a sword. And he said, like, what about Gandalf and all the rest of them, And Gygax had said, no, you can't be a wizard with a sword. And he was extremely indignant about that. He said, I should be able to be a raccoon with a bazooka if I want to. That's an illustration from World of Synnibarr, by the way.
The raccoon with bazooka.
And Gygax said something to the Gygax said something to the effect of, well, if that's the sort of game you want, go and write one. So he did. Yeah, he did. World of Synnibarr, and it's completely insane. Oh, shit. I got the piece of paper. Mort and the character sheet. There was Mort and Gonzo. I'd forgotten that was in there. Mort and Gonzo. Where they had stats Fate, Shot, and Force. And there were 200 life points, you're doing 20 damage, and yeah, we went through a few combat rounds, you can see. That was it. He did a Kickstarter a while back for World of Synnibarr 2, which I don't think was very successful.
It was not, as I recall, that nothing came of it.
Yeah, so, yeah, he told me little stories, and so, yeah, he gamed with Gygax. He gave me the impression that it was over a period of time, but I don't know. I've been a little while out of a job, so you take that job that you did for 3 months and you pad it out to being 6 months on the resume, so there's less gaps.
Yeah.
I think he might have done that with his gamer resume. But anyway, he said he worked for Boeing for a bit, and he used to sneak in at night to use their computers to write his game.
Okay. I just have to interject real quick. I worked for Boeing for a bit back in the early 2000s. I did a stint at NASA. No, he did not. But he might have had night shifts where he fucked off and worked on his game instead of working. But he wasn't sneaking into Boeing to hack the Gibson and write his RPG. But please continue.
Well, this would have been like the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, when did he write this thing? 1980. Would have been the late 70s. Might have been different then. I don't know.
Okay, you know what? It absolutely might have been different then. I mean, I worked for Boeing in the months after 9/11, so clearly different environment.
Yeah. Yeah. True. I mean, yeah, he might have been the janitor. I don't know. Or he gave me the impression he did IT, but I don't know. Might have been resume padding as well. I just have no idea. I mean, I don't know either way.
Paul on YouTube says you're gonna want to save that sheet for Mccracken Con. It belongs in a museum. Oh my god. Good one, Paul.
Yeah.
Plus one to Paul.
Yeah. So, what else? Yeah, he did martial arts. He had a bar called the Twilight Bar. This was the bar he was running at the time, called the Twilight Bar. And his band plays a mix of Beatles and Tool. He said, I'm not sure how that mix works, but
Toodles?
yeah.
I think that would be Toodles.
I don't know. I don't know. Let me think. Just looking at my notes here. Yes, at one stage, his house burned down. Back in the 80s, his house burned down, and he had to run outside in his underpants. It was a bit distressing thinking about Raven in his tidy whities. Had to run outside in his underpants to shelter, and he lost everything because he had all his money in the walls. He said, "What? Don't you trust banks?" And he said, "Well, I had my money in the bank, and that damn IRS came and took it. The bastards! They stole it from me, so I kept it in my walls." It was many years ago, but the business was completely legit after that with his bar. and all the rest, and where he had his band where he played. I didn't go to the bar. I should have gone to the bar, but I didn't go to the bar. And this was a Monday morning that we met, would have been. And he said that last Friday, a guy had come in. There was a waitress that worked at his bar, or a barman that worked in, and a guy had come in who was her ex, and it was a bitter breakup, and he was angry, and he brought a firearm with him. I'm not sure why he thought that would help him with his girlfriend, but anyway, he brought a firearm with him, and the bouncer tried to stop him enter, because apparently they don't like you going into places drunk and angry with a firearm. But yeah, so the bouncer tried to stop him. The bouncer was shot, and then the guy came rushing in, and there was gunfire going around. And Raven said that his girlfriend, so he threw himself on top of his girlfriend to protect her. He said, and then she pushed him and rolled him over and threw herself on top of him to protect him, because she was actually worked for the fire service. So her instinct is to protect others. And then he rolled over and pushed it. And so they were rolling over on the ground, and they decided this was a bit silly and that they should just get out of there. And they got out of there, and he said the police came later. Now, I was a little bit skeptical of this, but then I read in the newspaper that had indeed been a shooting at the Twilight Bar the Friday before.
I remember you sent me to the article.
Yeah, so there had indeed been a homicide, so any strangeness of Mccracken may be permanent, or it may just be, if you've just been witness to a homicide and come under fire, you might be a little bit jumpy and weird afterwards. So there might have been that going on too. Sure. The guy had a traumatic experience as well, or maybe he's just crazy. Anyway. And he was all enthusiastic about it. But he said that he was already working on a novel about it. He said, because really the waitress, he said, was a horrible gold digger and that, and the shooter was a decent guy. I'm not sure how you get from homicide to decent guy, but anyway, the shooter was a decent guy, and he said, so really it's like the hero is the villain and the villain is the hero. So he thought it was going to be an interesting novel. So he was going to write that. I don't know if he did a Kickstarter for that. And as far as I know, it never emerged. But yeah, that's how he was. Well, he's a writer. Look at all these pages, all created by one guy. So he's a writer. That's how he processes his experiences. So that was happening at his bar. That's the kind of bar he ran. I looked it up. At the time, Seattle had a dozen homicides a year or something like that. So it was a bit unlucky that it happened at that place.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not necessarily a reflection on the type of clientele who goes to his bar. But anyway, if it's still open, never looked it up. Anyway, sorry guys, forgive the chaos of this. I should be telling a story at the beginning, middle, and end, but I'm just saying things as they occur to me, and it was 9 years ago. It was February 2012. So,
what I recall of your meeting with Raven, Kyle, you don't have to apologize. It's like I don't know. It's like bumping into Jim Morrison while you're walking across the desert. It just you don't have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. I said, what do you think of other generic systems like GURPS and Rifts? And he said, they're watered down versions of Synnibarr.
I'm sorry. You may have told me that before, but I don't. Oh my God, please continue.
So he said, Rifts is cool though. He said, you've got to keep it gonzo. And he said of Steve Jackson that Steve Jackson lost his passion. His biggest mistake was making Munchkin a game that was separate from GURPS. It took the life and fun out of GURPS. Since he was saying, here's role-playing and here's power gaming, as if they're different things. They're not different things. Role-playing is power gaming. That's why, there's these guys defying a dragon with, I don't know, they appear to be on like a flying jet ski kind of thing. One super muscular guy and one girl behind him who's, just using a force field to hold back the flames or something. I'm not sure, man.
Well, one thing we can't deny about Raven is enthusiasm. I would never say that he was a cynical, half-hearted guy who didn't throw himself completely into.
He was completely sincere.
He's completely sincere. And for those of you who aren't aware, the World of Synnibarr, it's background-wise. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but
over 400 pages.
It is
over 400 pages and 100 illustrations, with more than 50 character classes and 1,000 spells, mutations, psionics, and special abilities. Includes instructions for engineering your own powers. Describes in complete detail the world ship Synnibarr and the more than 300 characters and monsters that inhabit her. So the world ship, it's like a world, but you live on the inside. It's a hollow Earth kind of thing.
It's a hollow Earth.
And it travels through.
Earth underwent some terrible tragedy. Humanity migrated to Mars and found out that Mars is this hollow world, and it's called Synnibarr, and they activated the drive system. So now humanity is in Mars, but flying through the universe, encountering all these weird races and so on.
Passerby will be happy to know that I've got a signature and
That's right.
Dedication there. To Kyle, thanks for the meeting. Your viewpoint is excellent. Anyway,
honestly, can any of us hope for a higher bit of praise? Your viewpoint is excellent.
I think he might have been worried about the satanic panic as well, because there's a little disclaimer. This book is not intended to foster any belief in the occult. I think he rushed out there.
Yeah, that's a bit of a letdown. Come on, Raven, tell us that you're plowing funds from Synnibarr into the creation of a Mars probe so you can find out if that sumbitch is actually a giant Dyson sphere we can all go live in and encounter flying laser clams and fire-breathing bears.
Yeah. So there's a chronology and all the rest. He said, so GURPS and Rifts were watered down Synnibarr. And I said, well, GURPS's latest edition was written by a particle physicist after all. That's an example of like just pure information, guys, and excessive detail. And I said, so this new edition of Synnibarr, and he pulled out his printed out new edition, and it was as thick as this, and he thumped it on the table, and he said, "This is the simplest RPG ever." Which I thought, yeah, okay, all those pages. And I flicked to a random page, and I think there was a bit where you could be a Batman. Like, not Batman as in no, but a man who was a bat and fly with your little bat wings.
Okay.
And there were diseases as well. He mentioned Ebola, and he had zombie radiotropia. Radiation turns you into a zombie. He had something he called Constitution in his second edition. You spend it in combat to hit harder or more often or the like. He said, originally I had it as calories, but then one of my playtesters said, Raven, no, And one of these playtesters goes the other way. He said, dude, you don't have any rules for surprise when you're sleeping. He said, okay, I'll put a rule in. And the playtester said, but it's different. It's different if a person is in light sleep compared to deep REM sleep or third stage. So you need 3 different sleep surprise rules. 3-level sleep surprise, even Raven thought that was a bit much. So I guess he wanted to...
Mccracken says, that's a little too granular. You're probably a little too granular.
Exactly. So, yeah, he said he originally made his Synnibarr rules on cards as a memory aid. And you'd play your combat moves by playing cards. And he said, my buddy told me that's how you should sell the rules. And I said, nah, that's stupid. This is the paradigm. And he gestured to his printout of the Synnibarr 2 playtest rules. He said, man, I had magic cards on my hands 15 years early. I didn't know it. And he also made some claims about meeting and discussing, or one of the players was the guy who later went on to make magic cards. So essentially he claims to have invented magic cards. He said, that guy stole his idea. And that guy, the magic cards guy, whoever the hell that is, fans of magic cards will know who that is. That guy made sure that he got barred from Gen Con. He said that there was one instance where he was at the booth with his booth babes. Yeah, he had booth babes. He hired bikini models just to hang around him.
I can believe
at conventions.
I've been told conventions for lots of different kinds of things. Everybody does that, so I 100% believe that Raven said, "Booth babes, I'm getting those."
Yeah. And he said they came along and they at one stage and they kicked him out, and he hasn't been able to go to Gen Con since. He got kicked out. And he says, it was because he was driven out by the guy who invented magic cards. Raven said he invented magic cards and he was driven out by that guy. It could also be that he was going around telling people that and maybe, haranguing the guy. He got picked up for that reason. There's occasionally things like that. I don't know. This is, forgive me guys, this is as best as I remember it. And this is secondhand. No, that's right. He goes on to say that Peter something or other came to Seattle broke and lived with him, came up with magic cards, and as his company expanded, he didn't hire his buddies. So Raven thought this was terrible because as his company expanded, he hired his buddies. But this guy didn't. And that as he climbed the ladder of success, he kicked it away so that others couldn't follow him.
Peter Adkinson is probably who he's thinking of.
He said, when Wizards took over Gen Con, I had paid $60,000 to have a stand there. Is that worth it? I don't know. Anyway, he sold it out from under me. I only found out when I was already there, he said. A guy tried to get me a room. The manager came back and said, Peter has insisted you are not to have a stand anywhere within 7 blocks of Gen Con. He said, I hate that guy. He's my nemesis. I'll let everyone know. Next I see him, he gets a broken nose. I never see him, though. I said, perhaps that's why you find it difficult to meet up with him now. I probably wouldn't be keen to meet up with someone who's keen to break my nose.
Could be.
And I said, are you sure you wouldn't get the broken nose, though, right? He said, no, he's all of 5'5" and scrawny. So,
yeah, looking at that picture there, Raven's, Raven seems...
Well, he does martial arts.
Yeah.
He does martial arts and stuff. So I've come across my notes. I've got my notes here of the original meeting. It said, gaming with Gygax, he says, happened down in Florida in the late 70s when Raven was at university. I made a wizard and wanted to have a sword. Gary wouldn't let me. I said, but Gandalf had a sword, and isn't all this based on Tolkien anyway? He didn't like that. Then I saw his magic system and said, hey, Jack Vance dying Earth, and quoted some of the book to him. He didn't like that either. It doesn't sound like he's great at the game table. He was maybe in his 40s then, greying and turning fat. He really wanted to control everything. And I said, didn't you used to have groups of like 18 people? You have to stamp down hard with that many players. And he said, no, there were only maybe 10 of us. Like, only 10.
Only 10.
Yes, he said, oh, and when his house burned down, he lost all his old artwork. He saved the. Evidently, he already had a print of the raccoon with a bazooka, and that's what's important.
Oh, yeah.
He lost his artwork and his original handwritten manuscript. Apparently, he originally did that by hand,
Oof.
which that's dedication, boys and girls. That's dedication.
That is dedication.
I said, so, since your house burned down and you lost all your cash, how have you supported yourself since then? He said, game writing and also some other stuff. He said, I worked for not Microsoft for a while. He said it was a velvet sweatshop. I haven't heard that term before. That might be a thing in IT. Is that, Bill? Velvet sweatshop?
Velvet sweatshop, generally, the way I've heard it applied in IT, and I actually, before Raven, I've heard similar terms applied to Microsoft. Basically, and understand the culture has changed since the 1990s, but up until the early 2000s at least, I mean, when you were in at Microsoft, you were truly in at Microsoft, the world was your oyster. And, they would help you on you could just approach another group and say, hey, look, I'm trying to write this ActiveX control. This is kind of what you guys do. And just like, bam, let's go huddle up in this super relaxing room with an arcade machine and a pool table, and we'll just rap about it and that sort of thing. But you were gonna put in 15-hour days. You were gonna have crunch time. Do you really need to go home? Do you really need to be at home during the weekend times? So, yeah, definitely Velvet Sweatshop is a way to put that.
And so since Washington State had legalized it by that stage, by the time I was there, I thought to ask Raven, did cannabis play any part in the making of Synnibarr? And he said, of course, but also it was fatigue. He said, when I worked for Boeing, after I stopped, I snuck in to use their computers because I couldn't afford one. He said, my old boss winked at it. One day he found me there in the morning, slumped over a computer and woke me up. Were you here all night, he asked. I said, yeah, man, random tables. So, this was generated by cannabis and fatigue. Now, Raven, okay, I don't know, it might be sounding a bit negative so far, but I want to say that he was a very enthusiastic, very friendly and accommodating guy. We spent most of the day together. We walked around Seattle and we had a nice lunch and that. And he was very friendly and accommodating, a decent guy. Like this strange gamer shows up from across the ocean and he meets up with him and hangs out with him for the day. That's a very decent guy. And this, in my experience, is true of most game designers. Because in the end, ours is a social, creative hobby, and so most of them are pretty social. So if you've got any fanboy action going on, don't be afraid to just go up and say hello. At a con or whatever, they'll have seen 200 other people, so they might be a bit jaded. But, if you just email or whatever at some other point, you might find them a bit more conversational than you'd expect. A bit of an exchange.
Without a doubt. The opening bit of text in The Lost Crypt, I have an essay about meeting Gary Gygax. It was literally, I sent an email to the band and said, wow, is this Gary Gygax? And fast forward 8 years and I was working for the guy until he passed away. So, yeah, take that chance, take that opportunity. Meet Raven Mccracken, meet Gary Gygax. Well, obviously Gary you can't, but meet these people. They're just human. What's the worst thing possible ever that a
Yep.
person who writes RPGs is going to say back to you over the internet or on the floor of a con.
Yeah.
No.
So, at worst, you go into their spam folder.
Right.
So, so we cruised around, and that's the other thing I was thinking of, that, the social, and they tend to introduce you to people as well. So down at the market, we met, I think the guy's name was Yakov. It was a guy of 50 or more. He was wearing a beret and a kilt. He called us into the FedEx where he was using the computer, and they were making a medieval fantasy film in the woods around Seattle, which he was very enthusiastic about. I had no idea if they ever finished it. I wouldn't know how to look it up.
Ooh, I'd like
He said they don't give them the script until the day. He suspects they're writing it as they go. He was bearded and looking very kingly in the shots that he showed us.
nice.
In his beret and kilt. There was also a guy playing a small piano organ in the street, and there was all this political stuff on the side of his piano organ about rewriting the Constitution to say that only people can be legal persons, not those evil corporations. And we also went to a game store in Pike Market. It's a funny little, for those who haven't been to Seattle, I assume this stuff is still there, but funny little place. It's sort of it's underground, but because like the main part of the city's here, and then the water's down here, much down lower. So there's a sort of almost a cliff face series of shops that they've got there. So it seems underground, but I guess technically it's not. And it's just this maze of shops, and he took me to this game store that was there, and they had role-playing games and comics and Star Wars figurines and everything. It was great. Ensuing days, I went back. I couldn't find the damn thing. It was a bit kind of what's in Harry Potter, platform 9 3/4 or something.
You didn't have Raven with you.
Yeah, I couldn't find the damn thing. But it existed, I promise.
Of course it did. Kyle, did you accept any brownies or cookies or candies from Raven?
No, we ate out. I didn't eat anything that he produced.
A wise choice, my liege.
So Raven had a card game called Crypt, which, in all honesty, I never played. He gave me a copy for free, but I never played. I'm not interested in card games. He told me about Eugene Roddenberry, son of the Star Trek creator, playing Crypt with him, playing for like 6 hours. He said, and the Crypt master, the guy who was running the game for Raven, said had enough. And he said, but he's Eugene Roddenberry. I can't turn him away. He wanted to draw Eugene Roddenberry away so he could talk to him. So he said he got one of his girls to unzip her cardigan in his cleavage to entice him away from the card game. Anyway, he said that Eugene wanted him to do a CCG for Star Trek. He said, so he wrote it up and contacted him, and Roddenberry said, sorry dude, I don't have the rights. Call those guys at Viacom. He said he did, and they wanted $250,000 for the rights. Too rich, he said. He said that a few years on, he thought for the rights plus enough printing to make the price reasonable, he might need like $500,000. So he'd do that as his next Kickstarter project. Raven Mccracken was going to do the Star Trek CCG as a Kickstarter project.
Man, can you imagine?
Yes. He fully agreed with my ranking of the importance of success of the game session of people, snacks, setting, and then system being last. My impression was that he was crazy, but not irrational. So that is to say, his dress sense and his gaming enthusiasm were not restrained by shame or common sense. If he wants to wander around with a mohawk at 50 years old, he'll fucking well wander around with a mohawk, even if it means he can't get a job, because he'll make a job out of his hobbies of drinking, smoking weed, and gaming. He will make and that's why he owns a bar and a game company. You know, I think this is great. This is a person just getting out there and being who and what they want and doing what they love.
Amen. As opposed
and
to having 50-year-old, I approve.
yeah. So, you know, don't hide your light under a bushel, guys. This is a big thing. You know, like a lot of people will complain they can't find a game group or whatever. You've just got to be out there and talking about it enthusiastically, without shame. Without shame. Because the only people who will ever shame, some people will think you're weird and go, and then go and talk to somebody else at the party instead. But the only people who shame you are people who've got something to be ashamed about themselves. So, two party experiences. Sorry to step off Mccracken, but this is, I think, an important thing for the gamers out there to know. Two party experiences I had. One was, there were these two girls, they're almost twins, they're born 10 months apart. Obviously had active parents.
We call that Irish twins.
Yeah. So they were born quite close together, so they're almost twins, and they had been friends when I was a kid, when I was in high school. And then years later, I was visiting my mother, and she said she was going to visit the mother of those girls. It was her or one of theirs birthday party or something like that. Can't remember. And would I like to come along? So I went along. I thought it'd be interesting to catch up. I went along and I caught up, and they mockingly said, I must have been in my 30s by then. They mockingly said, you're still into that Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And I said, yeah. So they were trying to shame me for having this geeky hobby. But the thing is that one of them, her marriage had recently broken up because she had pressured her husband into having an open marriage and he didn't really want one. And the other one was an alcoholic. So, you got someone who's ruined a marriage and another one who's ruining her entire life, and they're shaming me because I like to roll dice, eat snacks, and tell tall stories. Yeah. That's the sort of idiot who's going to shame you. I've never seen them since. Not missing anything. On the other hand, so when my wife was at university, she had a friend who, about once a month, he would have a barbecue at the university in their grounds. And he'd just introduce everyone who he had met over the last month, invite everyone who he met over the last month, plus some of his regular friends. So I went there, and it was mostly people who didn't interest me much, because she was doing a Bachelor of Tourism and studying Japanese, and I'm not interested in tourism, and I don't speak Japanese. So mostly, there were pleasant people, there's nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't, my kind of crowd. And then right at the end, as they were packing up, this guy started talking to me, Aaron. And we just did the usual introductions and, what do you do for a living and what are your hobbies? And him, for a living, he was a student doing a PhD in economics, and which I have no interest in at all. And then hobbies, and he said karate or something like that. And he said, how about you? And I said, at the time I was a chef, a not very good one, but I was a chef. And I said, but my hobbies, what I really enjoy is role-playing games. And this look came across his face, like the look a guy would have, if he's drowning in the water and you throw him a life vest. It's like
this look. And I would be willing to bet a lot of our viewers know that look too.
Yeah, and he got this look on his like that. Oh, we have to exchange numbers. We've got a game. He had gamed back home in Hungary, and he wanted to do so in Melbourne. This must have been early 2000s, and we gamed together. He was one of the groomsmen at my wedding. He comes to my gym. He still games with me. We're still friends, 15 years later or something. So, two different experiences. In each case, you go ahead and you be open about your interests and that, because most people just won't be interested, won't care. There'll be the occasional person who's like, and sneering about it, but they're usually pretty useless in their life anyway, so they're sort of projecting, you know what I mean? The only reason to scorn somebody else's life is if yours is a mess. Otherwise, their life is their problem, you know?
Exactly.
And then occasionally, you'll come across a gamer who's in the closet. And I said to him afterwards, you know, why didn't you say you were into gaming? And he goes, well, I was, but, you know, I hadn't done it for years, and I didn't think I'd come across anyone, and, you know, I was a bit embarrassed, and it was like, don't have any embarrassment. Go out, don't hide your lay under a bushel. Go out, tell the world about it, and you'll be surprised. You know, virtually everyone has played D&D once at some point, you know, years ago. They've done things. So just go ahead. So that's what I thought was the great thing about Mccracken. He's crazy, but not irrational, and he's just crazily enthusiastic about all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I thought that was great.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And I mean, I think, you know, picking apart Synnibarr, there are, you can find reviews of varying quality out on the net. Some of them, you know, some of them just approach it very dryly, like, you know, well, once you get past the setting, you know, this mechanic works, this mechanic kind of works, this is innovative, this sucks, that sort of thing. You know, I give art a 4, presentation a 3, organization a 5. If you're looking for something unusual, buy it. And then there's reviews that are like, they go full on Mystery Science Theater 3000 or Joe Bob Briggs and lay into
This is just insane. Okay, Chapter 3, provisions, missiles. Okay, Thunderer, a small missile most commonly used with shoulder missile launchers. It has no electronics. Tiger Shark, a small missile that is basically a hunk of fast-flying metal. Its head is 2.5 pounds of steel. It may function over water. And then, Maverick Sword. This missile is like a large sword. Its head is 80 pounds of steel. When it punches through something, it creates a vacuum behind it that pulls with up to 20 tons of force. This vacuum will draw everything that is not nailed down right through the small hole that it creates.
Oh, God.
Cobra Venom. A chemical weapon. It will hold 500 gallons of the chemical of the user's choice. The venom will cover twice the area of effect. This missile can be made to phase, like teleport, for an extra 15 million. The phased missile is organic electronics. So yeah, 100-foot radius. So you have 500 gallons of Cobra Venom or sarin nerve gas or something like that. And then there's Cobra Bite and Falcon Claw. This missile explodes in a 400-foot fireball. Yeah, okay, that's normal. The Tet Spear. This missile has wings and can be remotely flown and has the capability of landing and hovering. Raven invented drones, man.
I just want to say, somebody at Raytheon or Hughes Aerospace may very well have a copy of World of Synnibarr at their desk, because there is a variant of the extremely effective and worldwide known Hellfire anti-tank missile. It started out as a
an 80-pound sword.
I'm sorry.
Is it an 80-pound sword?
It's not an 80-pound sword. It has swords on it, though. I'm not making that up. It's like the AGM-114X, and in terminal phase, it pops 4 swords out that are designed to break off and do collateral stab damage to anyone not incinerated by the warhead. I'm not making that up. And if that doesn't sound like something that would be in World of Synnibarr, I don't know what would.
Kraken did work for Boeing. Perhaps he since went to work for Raytheon.
Yeah, there you go.
Quietly, confidentially.
Gentlemen, the anti-personnel engagement envelope of our Hellfire missile is second to none in the world. However, we've noticed that sometimes it can be too precise. Sir, swords? Swords. Mccracken, swords? Yes, sir, we put 4 swords on it. And here we are. Isn't the future grand?
It is. It is. Grandly insane.
Yeah. Imagine you're a tank commander, you see a Hellfire flying towards you, you don't have any active protection systems or whatever, and you yell the bailout order to your crew, and just as you're thinking you're safe 10, 20, 30 meters away, you take 3 foot of katana through the back because it was attached to a missile because some 50-year-old with a mohawk in Seattle thought it was just too badass.
Exactly. I guess he'd be 58 now, but I'm sure he will still have a mohawk.
I'm sure he still has a mohawk, and I'm sure he is still as enthusiastic.
When he's in the nursing home playing bingo, sorry, he won't be playing bingo. No. He'll get the other oldies to play Synnibarr.
He will be playing Synnibarr. I have a plan that, barring, Lewy body dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever, when they wheel me into the Sunset Estates, I will have a backpack full of D&D books on my wheelchair, and
88-year-old who wants to play a raccoon with a bazooka.
That's right. I sincerely hope that as Raven reaches his golden years, that he will be introducing his fellow pensioners to raccoons with bazookas.
Yeah, so I was going to say keep it real, guys, but no, don't. Keep it insane.
Yes, keep
it insane, because that's fun.
Absolutely insane. I was going to talk about a brush I had with an equally... Well, no, that's the wrong word to use. I'm going to say equally now, but I'm going to qualify and justify it after I've said it. Crazy game designer of a game called Hybrid, but the guy who designed Hybrid, I think, has legitimate mental issues. I don't mean just.
Are you going to do a screen share of the page?
Let me see. You know what? I apologize. This is on RPGNet, but if you guys want to see Hybrid, I'm going to read this to y'all, but I'm going to share this. I don't really. Let's see.
It's web archived. It was just a classic. It was it was just a classic old GeoCities type of page.
Yes. So Hybrid, the guy who created Hybrid, claimed that it was the most simple role-playing game in the world, and it only had one stat. It just had one stat. This is one of his rules. I'm going to read part of this, insofar as I can. Now, as I said the last time Colin and I were on, I took some introductory psychology courses because I thought I wanted to be a psychologist back when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And so that's what I went for in my first trip through college. I should have stuck with that. God, I'd be so much better off money-wise. Anyway, but one of the things we learned about in Abnormal Psych was something called word salad. That people with a certain...
I've got the archive for you. Archive.
Thank you. People with a certain type of schizoaffective disorder can do, where they will just start talking and link together things that make sense in their heads but don't really make sense when you start like looking at them for real. Uh, back a little bit. So this is a rule from Hybrid, or part of a rule from Hybrid. Rule 551. I never, except once, but even that they managed to leave out the worst bits, hear of any news of any crimes committed by USA, the American news media, unless I research it through Google and watch the History Channel, which even they imply it but never directly state it, else fear of reprisal from the Pentagon, as happened to CNN for a decade after Gulf War I. Most current example would be Iraqi indirectly telling the U.S. you can have our oil, but stop bombing us, as well as internal religion. This is in the game, guys. This is in the game. This is the hybrid version .02.
What? He has an active blog.
Yes, he does. And he just repeats one of the rules over and over again, and then posts bad things that he thinks that the government has done in the mashup of rules.
An active blog. Last post, April 27th, 2021.
Yeah. So but the point is, the little bit I interacted with him, and I mean, Raven is just based on what Kyle's told me and the little bit I've seen of him on social media and so on, a very exuberant person when it comes to talking and thinking about hybrid and gaming and that sort of thing. It may be an exuberance that rubs you wrong. It may be way too over the top, and you might, your bullshit detector might peg all the way over to the right when he starts talking about, I invented Magic the Gathering. I was going to work with Gene Roddenberry's son. I told Gary Gygax off. I used to sneak into a military contractor to work on my game. But he's got enthusiasm and he's got heart. Hybrid, I almost feel bad about even discussing, because the guy who designed Hybrid is clearly fundamentally broken, and I don't mean that in the sense of let's be tongue-in-cheek and say that this guy who's really just got some ADHD and a penchant for over-the-top game design. The guy who designed Hybrid, I don't know. Here's another one. This one has nothing to do with the news. Disclaimer, warning, Rule 196 is X-rated in that to calculate L, use X equals bracket, parens, open bracket, open parens, C2, that was his stat, was C2. It was just one stat, it was C2. And I'll tell about interacting with him, but C2 divided by 10, close parens, to the second power, close bracket, which is for mature audiences only, at symbol, or above the age of 20, comma, but most 90% of this RPG is for all ages, though maybe not rule number 193, which is not meant to be read by kids, and rule 187 explains homosexuality mathematically using modifier G at 11. Words kind of fail me. And that's small. That's like a small rule there. And it just goes on for pages and pages like that. And when he was an exhibit on the Bastard Culture website that I used to use, which is there's a whole story behind that. But I actually met a lot of very good people there. But the Prime Directive, the website had a Prime Directive. And the website, it was called Portal of Evil. And the Prime Directive was, don't interfere with the exhibits. Don't send them emails. Don't send them, at the time it would have been AOL messages. Don't sign their guest book. If they have a forum, don't post in it. Don't tamper with them. Because a lot of people would put silly things on the internet. And this being in the before time, I mean, nowadays, if you put something silly or stupid on the internet, like, say, communism will win, or, I can't wait for China to take over the United States, or something ridiculous like that, you can do it on Twitter, and there's 25,000 people who'll support you openly. Back in the day, if you posted on someone's forum and said, hey, I think you're kind of an idiot for thinking, you're a My Little Pony character, that just might crush them, and then they would take all that off the internet, and there would be no more funny. So nobody ever interacted with the creative hybrid and said, hey, we're making fun of you over Portal of Evil. Just somehow he found it, he saw that it was linked, and came over and started answering people's questions. Now, when I say he started answering people's questions, he responded to statements in exactly the same format that the rule for gay sex that I just read you was. So, you might say, like, I tried to engage the guy. I'm a gamer, I said, so, hybrid, can I take a group of 3 or 4 adventurers into a small goblin lair and fight some goblins and get some gold? Oh boy. So he starts talking in pseudocode, which, if you're not a programmer, pseudocode it's not a programming language, it's a procedural way of writing that functions like a programming language, so you can explain computational ideas, but you don't.
I thought it was what they say on Star Trek, but pseudocode.
Yes, exactly, pseudocode. So yeah, I asked him this question about goblins because I'm like, I want to see what it's like, and it was just, well, you'd have to multiply the total numbers the total players by their numbers divided by C2 squared, and then the individual weight of each gold pieces times the goblin's C2 divided by the number of and I was just like, I cannot do it justice. I wish I could have found the forum post. I found the forum archive, but I could not sift my interactions with him out of the stuff, because it was in a 7-zip file stored on somebody's private server, and they let me crack it open, and it was just like, because it's an old forum. There's millions of tiny little text posts in there. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's about Doctor Who. Equation used by Doctor Who is one of the episodes against his greatest nemesis, the guy stuck in, open bracket, side, close bracket, a singularity, but later managed to escape, but couldn't exist in normal space for too long or for too extended period of time, like a fish out of water, as his body was composed of antimatter, not referring to Davros, creator of Daleks, which could be modified to just about anything, including antimatter, which is what DC later referred to the trouble coming up with the anti-life equation, so I assumed DC gave an earlier form of the anti-life equation to Darkseid, that being antimatter, rather than its more elementary form being the form of field activation. And this just goes on and on and on and on for paragraph after paragraph.
It's just some poor guy who normally takes antipsychotic meds, but when he's lost his pill bottle, he sits down to write his game.
He sits down to write his game. Yeah, I mean, this is not. Again, this is like the anti-Synnibarr. Kyle, if God willing, you and I ever sit down face to face, yes, we're going to play some D&D. Yes, we're going to do all kinds of gaming, but I insist we play some Synnibarr. I insist that hybrid is never brought up after this live stream again.
Just take me right back.
Uh-oh, we lost Kyle. Kyle, we lost your image. If you're still there with us. Oh no. The hybrid RPG guy got it. So hopefully Kyle will be back. I just messaged him there. Hopefully he'll be popping back. Oh, there you are. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, I just got a delivery. That's why.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Aha!
Do we have a mail call? Bum, bum, bum. More conflict.
Yeah. Latest copy.
So, let us talk about
And
RPGs that we like and are
the combat chart's in the middle now. That works better.
excellent. So I can just I can expect an updated version in the mail soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do not have to send me an updated
Oh, I did.
print copy of it. So
I did.
stop it.
Oh, it looks not too bad. So some people had asked for examples, and so I've just put them in a sidebar box, and that seems to work all right. Essentially, I filled out the examples so that almost everything would be a full page. And at first I tried to do the examples. One of the cool things about the examples in games like RuneQuest is that they tell a story. It's the same character throughout. And I tried to do that, but it was a bit tortured with all the different rules, trying to tell that story. So I ended up just doing random category of people, or random descriptions of people. Yeah. So, well, that's it. That's the little booklet on sale at Lulu. If it resembles to you, Classic Traveller, the reason for that is that's what I copied. Well, I didn't copy the rules, but the format, because I think that's a good format. Digest, saddle stitched, or in this case stapled, 9-point Arial font, and just very simply laid out. And 48 pages, so that restricts how much I can grab it on.
Now drop me a link to that so I can share it with everyone so they can get their copies.
Sure.
And just to let you guys know, I will be joining Jayashiro Finney on his live stream shortly. Let me see. So if you want a hell of a good RPG, good action RPG, then you should absolutely check out Conflict. I cannot say enough good about it. The mindset that it puts me in when I play the game is very different. Because you go someplace with an RPG. It takes you to Greyhawk or on the bridge of the Enterprise. And you tend to approach certain RPGs with, different mentalities. Now, I'm not one of those RPGs are serious business kind of people. I think RPGs should be fun, and I think they should be entertaining. And I think you can, if you can learn something from an RPG, then you should absolutely take that lesson away. And it is that category that for me, Conflict absolutely shines in. I'm not going to go fully into this. Kyle and I talked last week about the South African delivery driver, so it misses the mark. Security officer for a cash and transit convoy, and thinking about what I've learned, just a little tiny bit I've learned from second guessing, and I don't mean that in the negative sense, but really thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds in Conflict. kind of gave me some interesting insight. Like, yeah, definitely. I mean, if all I ever played was, I don't know, Palladium, or something equally wacky, Rifts, I might view the South African cash in transit failed heist with more of a, oh yeah, he could have done this baller move where he power slid the car and then, flipped the door open and stepped out while the car like slid behind him, and then he brings up the M4 and he just starts, zeroing every one of the bad guys. Having played just a little bit of Conflict and more helpfully, I guess, not more helpfully, but more immediately, watching the video, yeah, shit ain't like that, and for Conflict to have really kind of brought my thinking for that kind of situation around. No ray guns, no spells, no dragons, no air car jet skis with a wizard and a force field involved. Speaks very good volumes about it. So pick up a copy of Conflict if you want something that is not only going to entertain but inform. Kyle, you hit one out of the park, and I'm not saying that just because you're the co-host. All right, definitely 2 thumbs up. It's gonna be a proper review in some places. Guys, go buy a copy.
Well,
of Conflict.
I mean, I was going to hold off a bit on publishing it. We get some more beta testing with some people playing it without me there. But I shared it with a couple of military guys that I knew, and they just said, "Bang on! It's bang on! Publish it." And I said, "Yeah, but it needs to be tested a bit more." And like, "No, it's fine. Publish it." So,
I mean,
one was a major of artillery. It's been overseas a couple of times, and another was in commandos, and he wishes to remain nameless, not because of any super secret stuff, but just he doesn't want to be associated with us gamers.
Smart man.
But yeah, he said it was bang on, and he would know better than us. So
yeah, so yeah, when a couple of operators are like, "Yeah, your game is getting it right, folks. The game is getting it right." I mean, I'm 278 pounds of cookie dough, and I feel born again hard after playing Conflict a couple of times. Okay, it really, again, I don't think I can overstate it or even state it properly how immediate Conflict is, because again, you're not going to quaff a healing potion. You don't like chip away a couple of hit points and you're like, I'm down a couple, and then you keep moving.
that's I haven't gone full ball realism, because there was I remember being impressed in Breaking Bad where what's his name, Hank, gets shot. So he takes out the guys who take him out, but then he falls down and he goes off to hospital and is operated on, and then he goes home to recover, and he has about 12 months of rehab, the first 6 months of which he lies around in bed collecting rocks and becoming addicted to painkillers.
Minerals, Kyle. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to do the meme. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, nobody wants to roleplay 18 months of rehab and post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. We don't want to do that.
And poor Hank had that in spades.
Yeah, so I was impressed by that in the show, because it's very rare that a TV show does that sort of thing. Normally everyone's better by the next episode, at worst. I was very impressed that they did that. But that was a drama show rather than an action show. In an action show, we want them to be better by next week. So I tried to steer a middle way between that. So if it doesn't kill you, you can get better. if you've got good medical care. If you don't have medical care, then you're toast. But if you have good medical care, you can get better, and there aren't really any long-term effects. If you came near death and you drop a point of health and you've got 0 to 3 points of health, and once you hit health 0, you're no longer fit for no longer fit for uniform service because you're sickly. But it doesn't go into your leg got blown off by the mine or something like that, because there's limits to what we want to do.
and like Kyle says, it's 24 pages. You said
48.
I'm sorry, 48. It's not like 32 of those pages are not gun porn. All right?
No.
You're not going to say like, well, here are the stats for an M4. Here are the stats for an M4A1. And that's one thing I liked about it was, it didn't feel like, do I want to use a 5.45 or a 5.56 assault rifle in this case? Which I think a lot of
in the game it doesn't make any difference. It's a bit like old D&D with just everything doing 1d6 damage.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. The difference it makes is whether or not it can penetrate armor.
Yeah. I mean,
particular armor that you've got.
Twilight 2000, as much as I love it, it's just table after table of gun porn. It's like, well, you encounter some Polish soldiers, they have assault rifles. AK-74s. Well, no, these are territorial Polish soldiers, so they've got AK-47s. They have older. Oh, okay. So this does not do that. It's just good, visceral fun, and I highly recommend it.
If you have all that detail, it slows things down, and you run into that GURPS problem that by the time you figure out if you lived or died, you don't care anymore. So, there's a balance. Only so much detail is meaningful. I don't think it's a meaningful difference whether you get shot with an AK-47 or an AK-74, 7.62 or 5.56. It still puts a hole in you. I don't think there's a meaningful difference. There might be if over 10,000 guys are shot, there might be a difference in survivability or how long they have to spend on the operating table or whatever. But it's not it's a smaller difference than is expressed by 2d6, which is the resolution system. So I don't think it's an interesting difference either. If you were playing not Conflict but Medicine, the adventure game of modern trauma surgery, then you might want to go into all those details. But we're not doing that. So we're about the conflict, about the fight.
Yep.
More importantly, the preparation for the fight, the scouting around and gathering information and planning your operation so that you just go and you totally overwhelm the guys. So it doesn't matter how much damage their weapons do because they don't even get a chance to shoot at you. Yep. That's what you want. Ambush the bastards.
It is what it says on the tin, folks. It is conflict. So go out and get your copies on Lulu and start playing the hell out of it. Surprise your players with a lightweight, modern action game where you can do the shootout in heat. You can do the real world event, which was the North Hollywood shootout, if you want, or have some happy times in good old Mozambique back in the 1970s when all the rage in Africa was toppling and setting up new governments just to topple them again. But it's got my stamp of approval, and I'm a dude who thinks that there are places where this isn't verbose enough. So do give it a shot. I think we're probably gonna break on that because I want to leave on a high point, and that's talking about the brand new edition, rendition, version, edit of Conflict. I almost said hybrid of Conflict. Anything in partying, Kyle?
No, we've covered the gamut. We've gone from crazy but interesting games like Synnibarr and simply crazy and not very interesting games like Hybrid to, I hope, sane and interesting.
Sane and interesting, yes.
We've covered the spectrum today.
And when Kyle gets his adopted live-in daughter to write an armored vehicle section for conflict, you can blow up tanks too. So, all right, guys, it has been a stone groove as always. Kyle, thank you for your participation and your great stories about Raven. I will be back tomorrow. We will be doing another paint lab where I'm going to be continuing on with our little hireling buddies here and talking about just the craft and so on. Friday, who knows, maybe open BS. I certainly don't. But listen, you guys all have a fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Remember, I love you, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys. Don't forget, we get 1,000 subs on YouTube, and it's mini convention time. So get your friends, get your family, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell. It all helps us out, and see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.